Well, hello. What I want to do today is work on a reading test with you for the GED. The reading test is important to do first before the math test. If you aren't good at reading and understanding details in the reading, the math test is difficult. The order that you should take your test in is the reading first, conquer that first, and then go for the math. And having said that, it's good to go ahead and work on everything, but focus first overall on the reading. The science and the social studies are good to look at too, because they'll help you with your reading and your math also. There's surprisingly math questions on both the social studies and the of course science test. So once you pass reading, once you pass math, then honestly, from what I understand overall, it's unusual to have difficulties. And from what I've seen teaching GED classes, it is unusual to not pass the social studies in the science test. So anyway, here's a diagnostic test from Kaplan we're going to do together. Let me share it on the screen here. Here we go. So this is from Kaplan. So I'm going to read it, but you can hit pause or mute and read it on your own. And that's probably a really good idea to read it on your own. Maybe when I turn the page and we answer you should try it yourself and read the whole thing and try the questions for the first one. And then if you need to, go back and listen to me read it and explain the questions anyway. But you need to be able to read it on your own. So all right, it says excerpt from the Don't Call Introverted Children Shy. Imagine a 2-year-old who greets you with a huge smile, offering a toy. Now here's another child who regards you gravely and hides behind his parent's leg. How do you feel about these two children? If you're like most people, you think the first child is social and the second child as reserved or shy. But this misses what really goes on with standoffish kids. Many were born with a careful, sensitive temperament that predisposes them to look before they leap. And this can pay off handsomely as they grow in the form of strong academics, enhanced creativity, and even a unique brand of leadership and empathy. One way to see this temperament more clearly is to consider how these children react to stimuli. When these children are at 4 months, if you pop a balloon over their heads, they holler and pump their arms more than other babies do. At age 2, they proceed carefully when they see a toy robot for the first time. When they're school age, they play matching games with more deliberance than their peers. Notice that none of these things, popping balloons, robots, matching games, has anything to do with people. In other words, these kids are not antisocial, they're simply sensitive to their environments. But if they're not antisocial, these kids are differently social. Children with this type of temperament are highly likely to grow up to be introverted. But shyness and introversion is not the same thing. Shy people fear negative judgment, while introverts simply prefer less stimulation. Children with an alert, sensitive temperament also pay close attention to social cues and moral principles. By age 6, they cheat, break rules less than other kids do, even when they believe they won't be caught. At 7, they're more likely than their peers to be described by parents and caregivers as empathetic and conscientious. As adults, introverted leaders have been found to deliver better outcomes than extroverts. When managing employees, according to a recent study by management professor Adam Grant at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, because they encourage others' ideas instead of trying to put their stamp on things, and they're less likely to take dangerous risks. But we wouldn't want to live in a world composed entirely of cautious introverts. The two types, introverts and extroverts, need each other. Many successful ventures are the result of effective partnerships between introverts and extroverts. The famously charismatic Steve Jobs teamed up with powerhouse introverts at crucial points in his career at Apple, co-founding the company with the shy Steve Wozniak and bequeathing it to his current CEO, the quiet Tim Cook. The ideal scenario is when these two toddlers, the one who hands you the toy with a smile and the other who checks you out so carefully, grow up to run the world together. And it says in small print, reprinted with permission from Susan Cain, time January 6, 2012. All right. So you have to read a passage and then you answer questions on it. So here we go. Number 1. Which of the following best expresses the main idea of the passage? A, companies should include both introverted and extroverted workers on teams. B, there are advantages to being sensitive and introverted. C, children who are sensitive are more deliberate when playing a game. D, introverts simply prefer less stimulation than others do. Oh, and I meant to say, what you should do, all right, hit pause when we start a question, read it yourself and try it. So you should try it right now, guess an answer, maybe hit pause, and then I'm going to work it out for you and give you the answer. All right. So the answer number 1 is B. There are advantages to being sensitive and introverted. The main idea, which one is the main idea? They talked about companies benefit from introverted and extroverted workers. It was part of the article about advantages to being both sensitive and introverted. So it's not that one because it's like a part of the whole thing. And C, that also is a part of the whole entire thing, the fact that they play games more deliberately. And also, that's another small piece of the overall idea, being that there's advantages to being sensitive and introverted. All right, number 2. Again, hit pause, read it, try it yourself, and then hit go when you're ready. According to the passage, children with sensitive temperaments are more likely to be empathetic, risk-taking, antisocial, noisy. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the passage for you so that you can look it over if you need to, and hit pause on it and read it if you need to. Okay, again, they're asking about children with sensitive temperaments. They were definitely not risk takers, and the article went painfully into detail that they're not antisocial and they're not noisy. So it's not those 3. And if you read through it, you'll see the word empathetic a couple places. I saw it just now when I was scrolling through it up here. But the process of elimination is also a good way to do these questions. All right, number 3, again, pause it and then restart when you're ready. Number 3, according to the passage, the partnership between Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak is an example of which of the following? A, the negative consequences of a mixture of different personality types in the workplace. B, a successful collaboration between 2 introverts. C, a successful collaboration between an introvert and an extrovert. D, a combination of people who should run the world. Okay, the answer to number 3 is C, a successful collaboration between an introvert and an extrovert. They never said they should run the world. And they're not 2 introverts. They said that the one's an introvert and the other one's an extrovert, if you go back and look at it. And they didn't say that it was a negative thing. It said it was a positive thing that they were working together. They did really good with Apple. Okay, 4. Which of the following is the best summary of the second paragraph? All right, we're going to have to go back, look at the second paragraph. Let's go back. There's the first paragraph, there's the second paragraph. And sometimes it's a really good idea to go back and just look a little bit at the previous paragraph. I've come to find out usually a lot of the time it relies on something from the previous paragraph. All right, so let's see here. Again, hit pause if you need to, make your mind up, and then hit play. A, some children respond more dramatically than others to familiar or startling events. B, observing how children respond to stimuli is the best way to study different kinds of social behavior. C, children who are perceived as shy are actually more sensitive than other children to stimuli in their environments. D, if sensitivity in a child is not corrected by the age of 2, that child will grow up to be an oversensitive adult. Okay, and the answer to number 4 is C. Children who are perceived as shy are actually more sensitive than other children to their environment. Again, the other ones don't really capture the whole paragraph or state the overall idea of it. They want to know the best one that's the best summary of it all. The other ones kind of give details and things. All right, 5. Based on the passage, which one of the following activities would an introvert most likely prefer? Again, hit pause, pick it. Okay, A, enjoying a quiet dinner with a handful of friends. Oh, then introvert might like that. They like quiet. Going alone to a club to enjoy loud music. Oh, they're not going to like loud music. Accompanying one friend to a crowd, no crowds. Participating solo in a sport called extreme, no, they don't like taking risks. No, it's going to have to be A. All right, next one. So we got another one to read. It says it questions 6 to 10 refer to the following information about forklifts and related in the related diagram. Okay, excerpt from Forklift Safety Guide. Driving a forklift differs from driving a car. In a car or truck, the front wheels steer the vehicle. A forklift has the steering wheels in the rear. The rear end of the forklift swings in a circle around the front wheels, which support most of the load. The operator must check that there is room for the rear end to swing when making turns. This clearance can be maintained in your workplace by permanently marking aisles with painted lines or arranging storage racks in a way that create obvious aisles for travel. However, these marked aisles will only be effective if you keep them clear of stored materials. A forklift is not as responsive as a car when the steering wheel is turned. Rear wheel steering makes it difficult to stop a forklift quickly or swerve and maintain control. If it is important then not to drive a forklift fast or around corners. Driving with the load downhill can result in a loss of the load or control of the forklift. If you drive a forklift on an incline, you must keep the load on the uphill side. Otherwise, you may have no weight on the wheels that steer and you can lose control. The load could also fall off or cause the forklift to tip. Often, a large forklift load obstructs the driver's view in one direction. It may be necessary to travel long distances with a load in the rear. In reverse for most forklifts, use extra caution when driving in reverse. Number 6. According to the passage, which one of the following is an effect of rear wheel steering on a forklift? A, the front wheels carry most of the load. B, the driver may have some difficulty in controlling the forklift. C, there is a danger that the forklift will tip over. D, the forklift driver may have little visibility. Rear wheel steering. Okay, let's go back. It should be B. A driver is going to have some difficulty controlling the forklift when it's reversed. You have to take the time and go back and look at the passage more to figure out which one it is. You have to take the answer from the reading and not make up your own thoughts about it. Obviously, it's going to have difficulty with visibility and stuff, but they didn't talk about that in that paragraph. Go back and see what they said. Number 7, which one of the following identifies a pair of things or ideas between which the author draws a contrast? Driving a forklift and driving a car, the turning radius of a forklift and the turning radius of a car, a warehouse with clearly marked aisles and a highway with clearly marked lines, D, driving a forklift in reverse and walking backward. So right there, they're talking about a car and a forklift. I didn't see anywhere, if you look through all of it, you're not going to see anything else except the car. So number 7 is A. And they didn't talk about the turning radius of a forklift compared to the turning radius of a car. They just talked about a forklift and a car. Okay, 8. Together, the passage and the graphics support which of the following conclusions? A forklift should never carry a load taller than the forklift itself. B, a forklift should travel backward only when traveling downhill. C, a forklift cannot drive uphill unless it is carrying a load. D, a forklift that is driving downhill with a heavy load should travel backward. Again, you're probably going to need to go back and look it over to figure out which one that is. Let me make it a little smaller. All right, here you go. So go ahead, hit pause, look the whole thing over, go back, reponder it. Number 8 was D. A forklift that is traveling downhill with a heavy load should go backward, it said in the reading. Okay, number 9. Which of the following best describes the author's purposes on number 9? To inform drivers of cars about the difference between driving a car and driving a forklift. No, they're talking about a forklift. B, to warn the general public about the dangers of forklifts. I don't think so. It talks about the dangers, but not for the public. I think it's overall, it's for someone that wants to learn how to drive a forklift. C, to explain safe practices to forklift drivers, possibly. D, to describe the differences between skilled and unskilled. They didn't talk anywhere about being skilled or unskilled, so it's going to have to be C. Number 10, which of the following best describes the organization of the passage? A, the author lists potential dangers inherent in forklift driving and explains how to avoid them. All right, again, the organization of the passage. List potential dangers. I don't remember them listing potential dangers. Well, yeah, they did. They listed potential dangers as you went. They listed things off as you went. It could be that one. And then B, the author states that forklift driving is dangerous and gives examples of forklift accidents. No, he did not talk about accidents, although that would have been fun. C, the author lists the features of a forklift. Nah, no features given. And they didn't talk about the benefits of them. The author explains the pros and cons of forklift driving. No, it doesn't talk about the pros and the cons of the driving at all. And the value of forklifts. No, not really. Overall, it just talks about how to drive it and lists some dangers about it. So the 10 is A. Okay, next ones. All right, so this is 2 passages, and this happens a lot on the GED. They give you one passage that kind of is in favor of something, then another passage that talks against it. So this is passage 1, and this is passage 2. And that's how they refer to them on the questions. Go back to passage 1, go back to passage 2. That's what they're talking about, the whole passage and the other whole passage. All right, here we go. World Food Prize goes to 3 biotech scientists. The World Food Prize Foundation took the bold step of awarding this year's prize to 3 pioneers of plant biotechnology whose work brought the world genetically modified crops. Van Montague and Chilton independently developed the technology in the 1980s to stably transfer foreign genes into plants. The discovery that set up a race to develop tools to genetically engineer plants. It allowed other scientists to incorporate genetic traits that allow plants to better withstand drought and extreme heat and fight off pest and disease. Fraley was the first to successfully transfer immunity to specific bacteria into a plant. Fraley genetically engineered the first herbicide-resistant soybean in 1996. Genetically enhanced crops are grown on more than 420 million acres in nearly 30 countries by over 17 million farmers worldwide, the foundation said. More than 90% of the users are small, resource-poor farmers in developing countries. Many U.S. farmers credited genetic modifications in corn with saving last year's crop from all but total devastation, as half of the nation endured the worst drought in 60 years. Modern corn crops are more stable and can withstand a wider variety of climate conditions because of genetically improved leaves, roots, and reproductive capacity. Fraley said biotechnology will enable the farming industry to meet the needs of a growing global population. We know we need, from a demand perspective, to double food production around the world in the next 30 years, he said. Okay, passage 2. The rise in autoimmune diseases. Infertility, gastrointestinal problems, and chronic diseases may be associated with the introduction of GMO, genetically modified organism foods. In a position paper by the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, the authors ask all physicians to consider the role of GMO foods in their nation's health crisis and advise their parents to avoid all GMO foods whenever possible. The Academy also recommends a moratorium on GMO seeds and calls for immediate independent safety testing and labeling of all food items containing genetically modified products. As the reliance on GMO seeds expands worldwide, concern about food supply and safety continue to escalate. Genetically engineered seeds are identical in structure, and if a problem affects one particular crop, a major crop failure can result. For example, following the recent failure of 3 GMO corn crops in 3 South African provinces, the African Center for Biosecurity has called for an investigation and immediate ban of all GMO food. Corn is a primary source of food for Southern African nations. Most GMO seeds are genetically engineered to be herbicide tolerant and resistant to insect infestation and disease. Environmentalists worry that the characteristics of GMO crops may encourage farmers to increase their use of herbicides and pesticides, which will raise human consumption of dangerous toxins. GMO crops also manufacture their own pesticides, which puts further poisons into humans and soil and may cause unforeseen changes in the environment. All right, number 11, passage 1, the first passage. Most likely notes that the majority of GMO crops are cultivated by small, resource-poor farmers in developing nations in order to blank. All right, so let's go back to passage 1. I'll let you look at it. Remember, passage 1 is on the left, and then, made it too small. Passage 2 is on the right. So there's passage 1. Okay, going back here. The answer on number 11 is B. Suggests that GMO foods can be beneficial to struggling farmers. Yeah, it doesn't talk about how they can be harmful to farm. That's the second passage, not the first passage. It doesn't talk about it being expensive. And it doesn't talk about the failure of the crops. That was in passage 2. Okay, now passage 2 is primarily concerned with what? Again, I'll go back here. And passage 2 is the second one. Okay, the answer here for number 12 is D, the safety and reliability of GMO foods. They didn't really talk about the misuses of it. Pastors too really like GMO foods. Well, I don't know. They did talk about the misuses. I'm so sorry. But it didn't really talk about the uses of it. It talked more about the misuses of it. So not the uses and misuses of it. Didn't talk about the origin and development of it. And they definitely didn't talk about the benefits of it. Okay, 13. What can be inferred from the first paragraph of passage 2? Let's go back. First paragraph of passage 2. So there's the first passage for you. Okay, so the answer on 13 is B. The labels of some foods containing GMO ingredients do not indicate that the product contains genetically modified components. It didn't, again, you have to read it and you'll see it didn't talk about those things. And they want to know what you can infer from it, what it doesn't say, but you can take away from it, and that would be B. Okay, 14. The two passages primarily disagree about whether or not. Okay, the answer is C. They disagree about whether GM foods are largely a positive development for global food production. They definitely don't talk about recognition of scientists. They don't disagree about that. They don't disagree about that, but they do disagree about whether it's a positive development overall. Okay, passage 2 cites the example of a major crop failure in South Africa to illustrate the dangers of planting with GMO seeds. Which paragraph in passage 1 offers a counterexample that weakens this position? So we need to go back to passage 1. Which one offers a counterexample? Let's go back. Okay, 15 is C. Paragraph 4. Let's go back and look at paragraph 4. Right here. U.S. farmers credited genetic modifications in corn with saving last year's crop. So, yeah. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close it off there. I'm going to make another video for the next part of it. There's more questions there, I know, but that's probably long enough for one video. All right, thank you for joining me. You guys have a good day. Thank you, thank you.